Finally, the mystery surrounding Natalie Wood has been answered, and it's not good. Natalie Wood's death has been characterized as a terrible accident for 40 years. One November night in 1981, a stunning movie star fell from her yacht into the murky seas near Catalina Island. At first, both the public and government agreed with this version of events, which portrayed her death as an unfortunate accident that ended a remarkable life and illustrious career. However, a troubling collection of contradictions, shifting testimony, and forensic evidence that paints a completely different picture can be found beneath this handy narrative. We're looking at the unsettling reality behind one of Hollywood's longest-running mysteries today. Natalie Wood's death wasn't the straightforward mishap we've been told. The whole narrative of what transpired aboard the yacht's grandeur that night, from unexplained injuries to contradictory testimonies, from postponed emergency calls to reopened investigations, shows a horrific chapter in Hollywood history that influential people have been trying to conceal for decades. What you're going to discover will change your perspective on not only Natalie Wood's terrible demise, but also the forces that produced and upheld a sanitized version of events that the evidence is becoming more and more inconsistent with. The reason behind Natalie Wood's passing is no longer a mystery. However, the reality it exposes is more unsettling than most people are ready to accept. The evening of November 28, 1981, appeared to be rather ordinary. Actress Natalie Wood, her husband Robert Wagner, her Brainstorm co-star Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain Dennis Davern on a vacation weekend boat trip to Catalina Island on the yacht Splendor. The following morning, Wood's body would be discovered floating in the water, and a hurried story of an unintentional drowning would start to take shape. A story that has been pieced together throughout the decades. In order to fully comprehend Natalie Wood's fate, we must look at 6 crucial components that provide solid proof that suggests something much darker than a tragic accident. Let's reveal the carefully concealed facts behind Natalie Wood's last hours and the unresolved issues that have persisted in the wake of decades of research. Any work and, well, it left a deeper impression than some of my later photos. 1. Although her injuries didn't fit the scenario, she was discovered floating face down. About a mile from the yacht Splendor, where Natalie Wood had been spending the Thanksgiving weekend with her husband, Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the captain, Dennis Davern. Her body was found floating face down in the Pacific Ocean on the morning of November 29, 1981. She was dressed just in a down jacket and nightgown, which seemed unlikely for someone who had ventured out on purpose in a small boat, but appropriate for someone who might have fallen into the ocean by mistake. This unintended scenario was consistent with the first explanation given to authorities and the media. Wood had reportedly tried to secure the yacht's dinghy, which was crashing into the hull and disrupting her sleep, based on the initial comments made by people on board. According to this account, she slipped while attempting to maneuver the tiny boat and fell into the icy waters, where she eventually perished. At first glance, this story appeared to be credible. Despite her glitzy persona, Wood was known to feel uneasy near water, a dread brought on by an incident when she almost drowned as a child while filming a movie. All parties had drunk throughout the evening, the night had been dark, and the waters had been turbulent. This account was initially accepted by the Los Angeles County coroner, who declared her death to be an accidental drowning. It wasn't until forensic specialists re-examined the case that the physical evidence revealed a different scenario, one that had started to take shape even during the initial autopsy. Wood's body had several new injuries on her face, arms, and legs decades later, which weren't consistent with a straightforward fall into the sea. More tellingly, she had defensive-looking scratches on her forearms, the type that are usually seen when someone lifts their arms to defend themselves during a fight. Decades later, a forensic pathologist who examined the post-mortem results said, "The ocean didn't leave those bruises. Someone else did." This stark assessment cuts to the heart of the contradiction between the official narrative and the physical evidence. Bruises and abrasions that suggested violence rather than accident. Particularly suspicious was a series of bruises on Wood's wrists and forearms that appeared to be grab marks, consistent with someone having forcefully restrained her. These injuries weren't just random marks that might occur during a fall, but rather showed distinct patterns suggesting human hands had gripped her with significant force shortly before her death. The location and nature of these injuries became increasingly significant when considered alongside the fact that Wood was discovered wearing a down jacket over her nightgown. While initially portrayed as evidence she might have been preparing to go outside voluntarily, the jacket's condition told a different story. It was unzipped and appeared to have been hastily thrown on or possibly placed on her rather than properly worn for deliberate protection against the elements. Also inconsistent with the accidental fall theory was the condition of Wood's fingernails. Several were broken in patterns, suggesting she had frantically grabbed at something or someone shortly before entering the water. These broken nails contained no traces of wood or fiberglass that might be expected if she had been scrambling to hold on to the side of the yacht or dinghy during an accidental fall. Perhaps most damning was the timeline established by the coroner. Based on body temperature and other physiological indicators, Wood had been in the water for several hours before her body was discovered, a period during which no one aboard the yacht had reported her missing or initiated search procedures, despite her alleged fear of water making an intentional solo boat excursion highly implausible. The autopsy revealed another crucial fact that contradicted the accident narrative. Wood's blood alcohol level, while elevated, was not high enough to significantly impair her judgment or physical coordination. This finding challenged the implicit suggestion that intoxication had contributed to a hypothetical accident. She wasn't so impaired that she would have been likely to attempt securing a dinghy alone at night, an action completely out of character given her documented fear of water. When all these physical findings are considered together, the pattern of bruises indicating restraint, the defensive scratches, the broken fingernails, and the timeline of her time in the water, they paint a picture radically different from the simple accident initially portrayed to the public. The evidence suggests not a woman who slipped and fell, but one who may have been involved in a physical altercation before somehow ending up in the water. A conclusion that raises disturbing questions about who might have been on the other side of that confrontation. They reopened the Natalie Wood thing. Do you ever comment on that? No, I never did. You wouldn't cooperate with the well I already had. 2. Her husband, Robert Wagner, changed his story multiple times. Robert Wagner's account of the events surrounding his wife's disappearance and death has undergone significant revisions over the years. Changes that raise troubling questions about what really happened aboard the Splendor that November night. These evolving explanations, rather than clarifying the situation, have created a pattern of inconsistency that investigators find highly suspicious. In his initial statements to authorities immediately after Wood's body was discovered, Wagner claimed he had been below deck watching television after everyone else had gone to bed. According to this first version, he only realized his wife was missing when he went to their stadiatroom around midnight and found she wasn't there. Wagner stated he assumed she had taken the dinghy to go ashore to the nearby yacht harbor on Catalina Island. Despite the fact that this would have been completely out of character for Wood, who was known to be afraid of dark water and was not known to operate the small boat alone, especially at night. This first account notably contained no mention of any arguments or tensions during the evening. Wagner portrayed the night as a pleasant, uneventful gathering of friends that somehow ended in tragedy when Wood inexplicably decided to leave the yacht alone in the middle of the night. However, as the investigation proceeded and other witnesses were interviewed, Wagner's story began to shift in significant ways. Within days, he acknowledged that there had been some tension aboard the yacht that evening, but characterized it as minor and unrelated to Wood's disappearance. He still maintained that he had no idea his wife was missing until he went looking for her around midnight. By the mid-1980s, Wagner's account had evolved further. In interviews and in his 1986 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he admitted that he and Walken had engaged in a heated argument that evening, a significant detail absent from his initial statements. According to this revised version, the argument centered around Juan's suggestion that Wood should prioritize her acting career over family obligations. Wagner claimed that after this argument, everyone retired to their respective cabins, and he still didn't realize Wood was missing until around midnight. The most dramatic revision came years later. By 2008, Wagner had further modified his account to acknowledge that he had actually argued directly